Good day to you. My name is Fred Oakman, and as always with me today is Mr. Jake Peters. We are PS This Is Awesome, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 155. This is a show where we share our feelings about the current state of PlayStation, which is getting pretty exciting right now considering the console release of the PS5 is right on the horizon. But before we get on with the TV show, because that's what we do, I'd like to invite you all to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, youtube.com/PS This Is Awesome, and visit us on Twitter at PS This Is Awesome, and Tumblr, psthisisawesome.tumblr.com. If you want to make fun of our trophy lists on the PSN, you can find me at anchorless_81 and Mr. Jake Peters at jakesaw01. And as always, you can write the show at PS This Is Awesome at gmail.com. And most importantly, don't forget to share the show with your friends and be sure that you leave some sort of comment and rate the podcast as you see fit. So if you guys listen on Apple Podcasts or you listen on Amazon Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts or wherever you're listening, just give us a nice little rating, mention something on there. Maybe we'll get some more listeners. But yeah, Jake, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. It's been kind of up and down for me in terms of my mood and my energy over the past couple of days. I've been trying to stop drinking so much caffeine. Mm-hmm. I unfortunately had a bit of a relapse last week because my week was so crazy and I was out of town for work and stuff. I kind of needed to stay awake for, quite a bit. And plus, driving so much. And so today I basically yesterday or Saturday, I stopped drinking caffeine again. And it always does, between that and the weather being so crappy now, it's like, I feel like my summer or my winter blues are coming early. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but
yeah. Well, we just need to get the band going again, start practicing and writing this next record and doing something productive. That always kind of takes the blues away from me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but hang in there because spring is right around the corner in about 7 months. So.
Yeah.
No, man, we were just talking before we started the show. You gave me this thing called the Nut Weasel or the Weasel or something, and it picks up these acorns.
It's called the Nut Gatherer by I think the brand is like Garden Weasel or something like that.
That sounds about right.
So I don't know. I basically I just been calling it the Nut Grabber. I thought that's what it was called for the longest time, but then it turns out that's not what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like every bar has a terrible name. Like there's a place around here called Double D's. Like there's your Hooters, and then there's what the hell else? There's Mr. Woody's in Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania. There's like all these kind of on the border, kind of like weird names for bars. And yeah, the Nut Weasel would fit perfectly. The Nut Grabber would be a great name for a bar around here, it seems like. But yeah, to give the listeners any inclination on what kind of area we live in. No, so I've been using that. You asked how it was working. I have all these acorns that always drop off this tree. Well, they don't always drop. So if you're familiar if you're an arborist, you might know a little bit about trees. I do not, but it's my understanding that these trees only drop acorns every few years at a great amount. And I have one of those buckets that you get all of the blacktop sealer out of. They're pretty big buckets, and it is just full of acorns because I've been using your Nut Grabber that you lent me to pick up in my front yard. And now the listeners might be like, why would you even do that? Well, here's the thing is when you walk on those acorns in your yard, you drive them into the ground and sometimes they'll actually start growing, and it's not good for the yard. And when you have that many, it's actually just like walking on marbles. And if it gets on the sidewalk and you have people out front of your house walking on your sidewalk, they could actually slip on the acorns. So it becomes like kind of a nuisance. So I appreciate you lending me that. And I might hang on to it then. I mean, if you have no use for it, just for maybe until the acorns stop falling. Do you have a bigger one or something? Do you have a bigger size?
I mean, here's the thing. I got that one because the smaller one works better so there's 3 sizes. There's that one, there's a middle one, which I also have, and then there's a really big one. Yeah. And the size that you need is dependent on the size of the nuts, not necessarily the capacity that you want to use.
It holds.
So like, because acorns are so small in nut terms, that you need the smallest one to be able to pick them up. But it doesn't hold it holds quite a bit, but it doesn't hold like a shitload.
Right.
So, and then I have the middle one, which is the one that I use most often because I have 2 hickory trees, bitternut hickory trees, that I pick up the nuts of those with the middle one. But I'll be honest with you, like, I have an oak tree in front of my house,
Yeah.
But like compared to the tree that you're picking up after, I mean, this tree is so big and so old that if I were to use the nut gatherer, it would literally take me hours and hours and hours. It's actually, believe it or not, easier for me to just rake up the whole yard around the tree.
That's just crazy.
Than to use I mean, this year and last year weren't so bad, but like 2 years ago, I think it was, you're right. Like every 2 or 3 years, they have, I don't know if it's if they're in season or it's like they
ovulate,
a mating thing or whatever the fuck
the
it
tree,
is in tree
the tree's
world, right?
ovulating.
But it literally they carpet the ground.
Oh, it's crazy.
It is insane. The hickory trees that I have, I think oak trees are like every 3 years. The hickory trees that I have are like every 2 years.
Yeah.
So the hickory tree behind my house has been really bad this year, but thankfully the acorns haven't been horrible. Now I still have a shitload of leaves that I got to pick up, but the acorns haven't been too awful bad. But those things are amazing. And I've actually seen people make like super big versions of them. Like, how it's like that little cage.
It's like a hamster cage that spins. For the listeners, it's like a hamster cage on a broomstick.
Yeah.
And you just roll it onto the ground. And essentially what the hamster cage is made out of are these like pretty sturdy little wires. They're like little steel rods. And they form like a hamster cage. And when it rolls over the acorn it has enough give that the nuts pop inside the hamster cage, but they can't escape because you're putting pressure on the outside.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I've actually seen videos of people making like these contraptions that they pull like behind their four-wheeler that has like 30 of those on it.
That's amazing.
And like they just run around the yard with it and pick all the nuts up and stuff. But it's like, man, you've probably, they're kind of a pain to empty a little bit because you got to like spread the little things and shake it out and all that stuff. But it's honestly like,
it's genius.
It's the best thing I've ever used to pick up nuts that's not raking.
It's like one of those tools that only has one specific use. Like you can't use that for any fucking thing else. Like
no, you really can't.
It's only good for that. And so it's ridiculous. But maybe we should get on to talking about PlayStation. Jake, I've been playing a couple games here. I did start Vampyr, which is developed by Don't Nod Entertainment, published by Focus Home Interactive. This was one of the free PlayStation Plus games. And I got to admit, I like that it's very story-driven. It's a very story-driven game, but it feels a little clunky, so we'll see how long I hang on to it. I'm still playing Genshin Impact a little bit. I got my brother into that game. He's been playing a little bit. I also took a dive into the Ghost of Tsushima Legends, which is the free expansion. That is a lot of fun. I'm playing a necromancer character, kind of. It's not a necromancer. It's just a ghost of the Ronin class, like the Ronin character. So you get to play as him, and that's actually pretty fun. You should check that out if you haven't. And then I also beat the single-player mode of Squadrons. So Star Wars Squadrons. So I've done all of that. Jake, what have you been into? Anything?
So I finished A Plague Tale.
Oh yeah, was it good? Ultimately,
yeah. It's a good game. It's like I mentioned in the last episode. There are times where it is very obviously like a B or an A tier game. Like
right.
it's so close to being AAA, but it's like so obviously not made by one of like the really, really top tier developers. And where it kind of like shows its budget, I guess we could say, is in the way that the camera controls is really, really loose and like it's like, have you ever played a game where when you move the camera, when you let off the stick, it keeps moving a little bit?
I can't stand it. It feels like input lag.
Oh, it's fucking terrible.
Camera issues on the last show, I think, when you were talking.
and so that's one of the. Thankfully, it's got like a pretty hardcore lock-on system. Otherwise, the game would be unplayable, in my opinion. Yeah. And then the other thing too is like some of the voice acting is kind of meh, and some of the animations are kind of meh, but generally. And I would even say that like the what we'll call like the hook of the game gets a little bit, because of where they go with the story, it gets a little bit kind of like tedious at the end. But I would say overall it was a really good experience, and I think it's for what it is, I think it's a great game. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's on the level of, some of the other games. I actually have it as an honorable mention on my spooky games list.
Oh yeah. Well, don't spoil it for everybody.
Yes. So, but it's
we'll get to that.
Honestly, one of the things the rat mechanic in the game, and that's kind of the claim to fame of that game is I don't know if you've ever seen video of it. There are just thousands of rats on the screen at once, and how they move around, and it's really fucking cool.
Like Days Gone with the zombies or something.
Yeah, but they're rats instead.
Hordes of rats.
It's this really interesting time too. During the it takes place in France, during the plague. It's really, really kind of an interesting sort of atmosphere and game and everything. So yeah, I recommend it for anyone who's looking for something different. It's not something that I would necessarily run out to buy at full price or would, trip over some of these other games to play, but I definitely think it's worth playing for people that are interested in a stealth-centric, story-driven kind of third-person experience.
Yeah.
Probably one of my biggest complaints about it, because I could get over, some of the other stuff that I already mentioned relatively easily. The problem is that the game is basically, for the entire game, it's a one-hit kill. So for you. So it is very, very, very important that you stay in stealth and but when the camera's loosey goosey and some of this other stuff, sometimes you get kind of caught. And so, I'm sure you've played games before where the mechanics, the actual control mechanics of the game sort of inhibit your ability to play it a little bit. This game has some of that to it, but I would say that overall that's not a real big hindrance and that it's a game worth playing.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's interesting you brought up the time period and the aesthetic of the game, because that Vampyr game that I'm playing is set way back in time. And I want to say it feels like it's in London. The voice acting is really good in that game. Essentially, it kind of starts off where you're just, without spoiling too much of the story, because I don't know a whole lot, I haven't played a whole lot, but you kind of wake up and you're in this sea of bodies, and the guy's like, what am I doing? And you kind of come to, and it's a third person game, and you're walking through the streets, and it's very linear so far, but you have a lot of dialogue options. And you talk to different people. And the interesting thing is that you were apparently you were bitten by a vampire, and you're a fresh vampire. You don't even know what you are. So the first beginning of the game is you just being really confused, and you're not sure what's going on. And you actually end up biting somebody who's close to you, not realizing what the hell you're doing. And then it's just kind of weird. And for whatever reason, vampires are kind of just accepted, they exist, but they're trouble. You're actually, in your former life before you're a vampire, you were actually a really, ironically, a really good surgeon who was really good at blood infusions and transfusions and stuff. Kind of get contracted to work for this hospital because there's a flu pandemic going around. And it's killing a lot of people. So you actually are a good person in this game. You're supposed to be a good person, or you can play as a good person. But the problem, the juxtaposition is that you actually, in order to survive, you still have to kill people. But your profession is kind of like a surgeon, you're supposed to help people. So, and you're trying to find the guy who turns you into a vampire, I think, is pretty much the gist of the whole thing. But it's really kind of interesting. And the only thing that sucks a lot about it is really, I don't like all the different menus and sub-menus in skill trees and stuff. It just seems like it's too much for what they're doing. But maybe it makes sense. It just all seems so confusing from the get-go. Those kind of games, I feel like if you just, you just sit back for a little bit and just play it, it starts making more sense. But it seems like a lot to take on at first. But anyways, play anything else? Beat Plague Tale?
I actually considered maybe getting into Vampyr. I thought it looked really interesting. I haven't had a chance to download it or anything, but I also started playing Genshin Impact.
Oh man.
And it's fine. I don't think it's anything super special. I think honestly, the only reason why it's super special, people think it's super special, is literally only because it's free and people didn't expect it to be good. I think that it's...
Yeah, that's a big part of it for sure.
I think that it's honestly... a decent game. I think it controls kind of wonky. There are moments where it like lags a little bit. The fact that you have to be online to play it is a little bit of a bummer.
Like when you pick up items, like you have to wait like a split second to pick stuff up. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. So sometimes it's kind of confusing what the hell is going on in terms of like, you know, what is going on with the fucking elements in that game, like what is impacting with other stuff, and like how all that works is a little bit confusing. And it doesn't help that they changed all the element names to like something that's not obvious, like fire or whatever.
Crypto, Daedra, all these different things,
Animo, whatever the fuck that is. I think that's wind.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah. So you got it.
You know, I've put a few hours into that. You know, I got through.
It's got its hooks in me. Yeah. Go ahead.
So like, I'm not saying that I don't enjoy it. It's just that like, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel quite, it's just it feels a little bit too tedious. In terms of just the way that it plays,
like
for me.
Like do you feel like your stamina bar? They set up the distance you have to travel to places. Like I feel like it's intentional that like, okay, you have to go to waypoint whatever, but we know as a developer that it's going to take you. You can't just climb this thing because you're going to run out of stamina, and you can't just run there in one shot because you run out of stamina. So like they make everything just take so long.
Well, I think that's part of, so they look, it's obvious that they drew a lot of this stuff from Zelda, and it's getting a lot of comparisons to that because of it. Because that was the same kind of thing, how you had the stamina and can climb up, you know, sides of mountains.
It's like a pretty big rip-off, from what I understand.
Yeah, and even like the wings that you get is like the same as not the parasail, but like the
glider thing.
The glider thing, yeah. And like, I don't know. I mean, I like the graphic style. You know, I like the game or whatever. I think that the fucking dialogue is so awful, but like,
you do. I kind of like it.
Oh, it's so, dude. It's like,
it's campy. It's exactly what they want it to be like, though. Like it isn't awful. It isn't like they tried for something else. That's exactly what they were going for.
But it's just, they could have, I don't know. I feel like they could have made it. It honestly, to me, it seems like they were like, you know, let's copy the campiness of Japanese games. It wasn't necessarily like authentically making a Japanese campy game, if that makes any sense to you. But
aren't they a Chinese developer though?
They're a Chinese developer, yeah. They're not Japanese, so
but they're not United. They're not from the U.S., right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Now, you know, I sound like I'm being hard on it. It is actually fun. I do enjoy playing it. One of my favorite things about it is like the being able to kind of switch between the characters on the fly to utilize their different abilities. And
yeah, that's a whole part of the mechanic. Yeah,
like any fucking Japanese game like that, like it's. Like all the items and stuff that you pick up make no sense. Or like you don't know what the fuck any of it actually does until you sit down and like read all this stuff.
Right.
And like, you know, generally I think that it's pretty cool. Like I said, I put probably, you know, maybe 3-4 hours into it.
Yeah. It's easy to pick up and leave. Like you don't have to, you know what I mean? That's what's cool about it. It's like you can just do one mission and just shut it off.
So I got the idea yesterday. I was playing this game and I'm like, I'm not really tied to it, but what else do I want to play right now? And then I got the idea to start Wasteland 3. So I've been playing that.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty fucking good. I mean, I'm not that far into it. I'm only maybe 2 hours into the game, and it has some of its own quirks, right? It's, you know, my biggest thing about it is like when you're walking around the world, just kind of navigating and you're not like in combat, the controls, both the camera and movement controls are kind of clunky and cumbersome. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I remember the old game being very similar. It's just like, there's just a level of grit to it, like where it's not quite polished enough in that respect. Graphics are a little bit subpar, but like, I mean, this is a Deep Silver published game. I mean, it's like a B tier game. It's not like Firaxis made it or something like that. Right. For those who don't know, Firaxis is the one that made XCOM. That said, I am really, really kind of into it. It's super heavy, like really gory, like really, like the language is really, like the first thing that you come across is, you know, these bandits that are, you know, essentially just like eviscerating people and just murdering people for fun. And like, and all the dialogue is kind of reflects that type of world. It's actually even interesting, like whenever you look at when you start out, you pick like a pair of characters to be your starting characters. It's like you and one other person. Like it's like you get two people to start with, and they're usually some kind of team, and you get to choose like a different set. Like one of them is like just like a regular man and woman like couple that are just kind of braving the world. One is like a couple of like biker punks, but it's like a couple of gay guys. One of them is like the one that I chose is like a teacher and a student. So it's like a younger and an older person. Yeah. One is like like a father-daughter type thing. And one is like another couple, but they're like I think it's like a black man and either a white woman or an Asian woman. And, but they all have like different skill sets. Like it's so funny, like the plain Jane, like white man, white woman, like power couple, they're like the plain ordinary like character class that you would play at, like assault rifles and like, normal sort of plain Jane stuff. Yeah. And then it's not until you get to like the more interesting sort of, like more culturally interesting pairs where they give you kind of some interesting dynamics as far as their abilities. But, when I was mentioning how like the dialogue and stuff is really sort of kind of off color and everything, even like the skills, like whenever you pick the skills, like there's a science class, which is like, and both of them have, one of them is more of an engineer type and one of them is more of like a sciencey type. The skill will be something like nerd stuff and weird science crap, and like that's like the name of the skill. That's funny. And like so it's got a I don't want to say it like a theme, but like a what do I want to say? Kind of like an aesthetic, or like a layer. It's got like a color to it that is just very kind of, it's like charming and off-putting at the same time. It's really, really interesting. But like I said, I've only played it for a couple of hours. The combat, if you've played, XCOM or anything like that, will be very familiar to you. You have like your AP gauge, you have, your movements, your attacks, and you have like abilities like defend and ambush and stuff like that. You have to use AP to use like healing packs to heal yourself or whatever. It's like, Fred, you've played XCOM, what it's like, and it's very similar to that regard. Now, from what I understand, now I haven't gotten to like what we call like the main base or whatever yet, but I don't know that there's really like XCOM. One of the biggest things about XCOM was managing resources and research and building your base and unlocking new stuff. Yeah. I think Wasteland is more of an RPG in that respect, where you're like killing enemies and looting and finding stuff and leveling up and adding skill points to your character. It's so like Wasteland is more of an RPG. It's just that the combat is like a strategy type combat, whereas XCOM is kind of like a base builder / strategy combat game. I guess I'm kind of rambling a little. It's fun though. Like I said, I've only played it for a couple of hours. I'm going to play it a little bit more. Yeah. There's some other stuff that I want to play. I didn't realize that the Doom expansion stuff came out this week, so I may jump into that some, but I haven't really made too many commitments. That's why I kind of decided I'm just kind of looking at backlog stuff, seeing what I want to play. And Wasteland was one of those games that I thought, this is a good time to maybe start this kind of thing. Yeah. And like, the environment, at least at the very beginning, the environment of the game is very like dark and cold and snowy, and it just kind of like fits the mood, like fall going into winter around here right now. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, good deal, man. Well, hey, I appreciate the heads up on the games you're playing. Usually the last couple episodes you've been pretty dry as far as new games, so I'm happy to hear that you're jumping into some stuff. It's that time of year where it's just time to kind of dig down and start playing some games.
Yeah.
Jake, we got to look at the PlayStation 5 user experience. I asked you before the show if you'd seen it, and you said, yeah, you watched it earlier. There is a quick quiz. I like to do these quiz on Push Square with you. I blindside you with these quizzes just to see how receptive and how attentive you are to some things. And if you'd like to do that real quick, let me run. I've got 10 questions for you. This is on pushsquare.com. We get a lot of our news from here that we'd like to converse about and talk about and share with our readers. So if you haven't been to the website, it's just pushsquare.com. It's a great PlayStation site. So, Jake, the first question, What PlayStation franchise featured as the profile picture for the account used to navigate the PS5 user interface? Is it Ratchet and Clank? Is it Kills? All right. Killzone's correct.
Yeah.
Who was it from PlayStation that provided a voiceover for the PS5 UI reveal? Was it
you're talking about the guy that introduced it, or the main dude?
the main dude?
The main dude was, I think, Sid Schumann, right?
Yeah, he's an option. Now, you do get multiple choice, so you're 2 for 2. Good job. What is the name of the hub that appears when the PlayStation button is pressed? Is it the Command Center, the Navigation Center, the Control Center, or the Extras Center?
I think it's the Control Center, right?
Correct. 3 for 3. What PlayStation 4 game is being played by the Nifty Voyagers party? They show a screen of another person streaming a game, and they share the screen with you. Was it Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, or Days Gone?
Lost Legacy.
God damn. Yep. You might beat me. I got 9 out of 10 on this. What name is given to the cards on the right-hand side of the control center? Is it checklists, pursuits, projects, or activities?
Activities.
Correct. All right, question 6 of 10. How much time does Sid need to complete the A Big Adventure level? Does he need 12 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, or about 14 minutes?
10 minutes.
Ah, motherfucker. Yeah, all right. Are you cheating right now, or are you cheating?
No.
All right.
No, I'm actually browsing Facebook while I answer these questions.
Wow. Multitasker. What does Sid need help finding in Sackboy: A Big Adventure? A wedding suit, a football shirt, monk's robes, or a ninja costume?
It is monk's robes.
Come on. 7 of 10. Correct. Jake, we're going to have a lot to talk about maybe when we talk about this UI. What's the best resolution you can capture images in via photo mode? Is it 1080p, 1440p, 8K, or 4K?
I think it's 4K.
Yes, you're doing fantastic. 8 of 10. Question 9 of 10. What territory is the Explore tab exclusive to when the PS5 launches? Europe, US, Japan, or Asia?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the options?
Yep. You understand the question, right? The Explore tab.
The Explore tab. Yeah, I just had to think about it for a second.
Exclusive to Europe, the US, Japan, or Asia? I'm
going to just go ahead and say the US because it's the largest market. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
You got it. All right. Now, you're totally going to get a 10 out of 10, Jake. You're going to be an expert. The PlayStation Store is still a standalone app on the PS5. True or false?
Is still a standalone app? Because, okay, this is a trick question.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, because on the way that they advertise it in the new video is that, yes, it is a standalone app, but they advertise it in the UI reveal video like it's just part of the PS5 UI. It's not like an application you have to boot and load in, because technically the PS3 was like a browser kind of experience where it pulled in like the thing and all that.
PS4, you have to click on the store to get open the store and a new thing.
But like according to the UI video, they make it look like it's part
integrated.
It's integrated into the UI, which, I would say, true, it's a standalone app.
So you're saying it is a standalone app?
Yeah. Or no, wait.
I mean, I could be trying to throw you off, but the question is, the PlayStation Store is still a standalone app on the PS5. True or false?
I don't know. This is kind of this feels like a trick question.
This is the option to get 100% or a 90% on your test. If you miss this, we tie. If you make it, you're a better person than I am.
I'm gonna say false.
10 out of 10. You are an interfacing expert. Yeah. So good job, man. Unbelievable. I love these quizzes on Push Square. They're so fun. So let's get into talking about this real quick. Sony released they called it a user experience, a PlayStation 5 user experience video. Do you have any insight or any input on this video as a whole before we kind of go into little things? And for the listeners, you guys can watch this at PlayStation.blog. If you just go to www.playstation.blog, you can watch this. They have a link to it. It's interesting if you haven't seen it. Do you have anything, general comments?
My general comment is that they did a terrible job opening this video. And the reason why I say that is because my first reaction when they pressed the PlayStation button was, oh God, this is bad.
There's shit everywhere.
What they should have done is they should have shown it booting in from power off to like the actual like main home screen that we're used to, and then broach this topic
opening
of
the game
control
and the
panel and like because. Dude, when they opened that up and it showed all that shit there, I was just like, "Oh, this looks fucking terrible." Like, I really don't want this at all because it was like,
dude, it looks so cluttered.
Because I am, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but I bought the Xbox One S so that I could play the Game Pass games, and I'll never own an Xbox because the fucking UI is so cluttered and terrible, and there's all these cards everywhere, and you don't know what's going on, and it seems disorganized. And as soon as I saw this, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it just reminded me of my first reaction to the Xbox UI, especially since, the way that the cards looked, they weren't like immediately kind of registering what they were. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like if I was going to change something about it, so I guess maybe we should sort of inform the user if they haven't seen the video, but basically when they first press the PS button, it's like them coming out of rest mode. Right. And they go and it brings up
which
this
confirms there is a rest mode, which is good.
Right. So it brings up this control menu, which basically he's actively in Sackboy's Big Adventure, but it brings up this kind of control menu where it's a bunch of these cards that go across the screen.
It's not quite the pause menu though.
Right. And it's not the pause menu. It's like when you press the PS button on your PS4 right now, instead of bringing up that blue banner on the left-hand side, it brings up this card menu. And it allows you to do things like jump into other people's, multiplayer games, to jump into specific levels of the game that you're playing, parties, like all kinds of stuff. I think
that's
what they could have done,
center, right?
But like each card is very kind of cluttered and like, you can't really tell at first. Mind you, this is the first time I'm seeing it, so it just seems very cluttered to me. I'm sure we'll get used to it, but like, I feel like what they should have done is had like a banner on the top of each card that's like launch a level or party chat, or do you get what I'm saying? Where like you instantly know what each card is and whether or not you should pay attention to it.
Yeah, it didn't really say from what I could tell. So you tap one button to get access to your that button, the PlayStation, whatever button it is, it take you to that control center. You can have access to your friends list, status of your current downloads. They said access to your power controls, access to your controller settings, and more. And you don't have to leave the game to access that stuff. So you're absolutely right. So if you're PS4 right now and you hit that PlayStation button, you get that side menu on the left that pops up where you can, access the microphone, do all the different stuff, put the PlayStation to rest mode. But these cards pop up. And it's weird. Like they showed a section where like one of the cards will take you to news stories regarding the game that you're currently in. It seems like they just don't want you browsing your phone when you're playing a game. They just want it to all be right there in front of you. Some of the cards are considered activities. They said that it's supposed to remove barriers to your gameplay. The example they gave us, they were playing Sackboy's Big Adventure, which is a very colorful game to begin with, a lot of colors going on, but it shows the only thing that I thought that was really interesting was like you would go to one of these activities, right? And it would be like, okay, you're 33% of the way through this level. And when you click on that, it says you still have this, and do. And at the bottom, it said you have approximately, 10 minutes left before you complete these. Which means you can probably finish it in 10 minutes, which is a nice way to be economic with your time. But I would think that would have to get programmed into each game specifically. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, it's only going to be first party games that have this. There's no other way. Unless Microsoft Xbox has a feature like this, and there's no way they worked in congruence with Microsoft so that like the coding works the same across platforms. There's just no way.
I mean, it depends, because Sony could be taking data on the back end. Do they collect so much data from you when you're playing on their console? They could be doing this where it's like,
how long
kind
did
of
it take
based on the average user,
Yeah. That's true.
And they might not need to be in the game at all.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, you're right.
Now I do feel like they probably will have to have some developer support with the things like being able to jump directly into levels and stuff like that.
Like the video tutorials when you get stuck and stuff. That stuff seemed like that was pre-programmed in the game. It wasn't like a website that the card accessed that gave you the info. Like it was like built into the game.
But the cool thing about that is that's something that the developers or Sony or whoever could update whenever they want. It doesn't need to be in the game. So I'll be honest with you. There are tons of times when I'm playing a game and I'll have to like pause it and pull up something on my phone because like I'm stuck in a spot or whatever. And I really like the idea. I'll be honest with you, other than my initial like gut reaction to the way that the card thing looked, I honestly was really impressed by a lot of the stuff that it looks like they're trying to add into this.
I think it's out of the box thinking. And there was something I saw earlier today so right now the way it works with trophies is, well, unless you have it synced with Sony Rewards, because you don't get Sony reward points for trophies anymore. But the thing that's weird now is there was a screen grab of this UI video, this user interface video that showed like just a quick snippet, and it showed different trophies that you could unlock. And one of them was like a bronze trophy. It was like, unlock this trophy to get a brand new banner for your avatar or something. So it's almost like the games are going to, if you unlock trophies, they're going to give you additional digital content for your, maybe like a theme or like a background or like, which is a really cool idea. So we'll see how many games do that. That was something I thought was really outside the box thinking too. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I was less kind of enamored with the abilities to like hop in and out of other people's games and the party stuff and all that. But it's not that it's not cool. It's just that that's the type of, I just don't really use that stuff very often. I'm not really a big multiplayer gamer, but it was very interesting. But yeah, the ability to be able to like jump into levels, the fact that it kind of tracks, your progress on levels and gives you information and feedback, the ability for you to like have tips and tricks on how to get through levels. The whole picture-in-picture thing I thought was really cool, how you could like pull up, like if your buddy is currently playing Uncharted, which was the example in here, right? You could pull it up and kind of like put it as a picture-in-picture thing on the screen and kind of watch it while you're playing your game. Yeah. And like, dude, there's a lot of really cool stuff. I don't know how much of this is going to be implemented everywhere and how much of it is developer specific. Yeah, I don't know. I think that and it's possible. It seems to me like maybe part of the reason why it took them so long to kind of come out with this is just maybe they're trying to do so much with it. Maybe they weren't quite ready to show it yet. They even say in the video that it may be, fixed and patched before even the console launches.
Right. It's kind of like a trial thing.
But I think that generally what they're doing with it is pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. So on the PlayStation blog, I had a bunch of notes about all that, but we pretty much covered it all, man. But on the PlayStation blog, they had a little write-up on how PlayStation 4 games will work on the PlayStation 5. And I'm just going to read right from what they have. It says, how do PS4 game transfers and game saves work between the two consoles? It says you can transfer digital games, game data, and game saves from a PS4 console to a PS5 console using LAN cables or by connecting wirelessly. If you already stored PS4 games and game data in the external USB storage device connected to your PS4, you can bring them over to PS5 with that external USB storage device, which is nice. And if you are a PS Plus member, you can also sync PS4 game saves on PS5 through the cloud storage. And it says, please note the ability to transfer game saves between a PS4 version and a PS5 version of the same game is a developer decision and will vary title by title for cross-generational games. One thing that I thought was interesting also about this is that they said that you will also be able to stream PS4 games to your PS5, like from your PS4. Mm-hmm. So you can do like a remote play from your PS5 to your PS4 to play those games wirelessly, which is weird.
That's pretty interesting. I imagine that it probably will not. I mean, unless you have like a gigabit network and you're hardwired, I have a hard time believing that it's going to run very well. But
the external hard drive option's cool.
Yeah, the fact that you can kind of just transfer them is pretty neat. I don't know why you don't just re-download the game.
Some people have bandwidth caps, so they might be transferring, so you don't have to re-download all this shit. You can just transfer. It's quicker. I don't know.
I guess that's true. I mean, I guess there are probably places in the world that still have pretty bad bandwidth caps. I never even get close to hitting mine anymore. Even downloading a lot of these big games, I think, the relatively mediocre cable internet around here, we get like a terabyte a month, which is a shitload. So even if you watch a lot of now granted, we only watch, maybe a couple hours, 2-3 hours of Netflix a day and whatever I download on my PlayStation. So it's not like, we're one of these households that, has high def streaming going on for like 7-8 hours a day and they're just really blasting through bandwidth. But I guess I get it. It's cool that they offer that, I guess I should say. If you're one of those people that has fucking like DSL or something like that still, which a lot of people do, especially in like the more rural areas, it's pretty awesome that you can just kind of transfer your shit over that way.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think another thing that's kind of interesting is the idea of just wiring the two together. Like that just seems so old school, but it's probably the fastest way, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the easiest. If you've got them, honestly, you probably don't even have to connect them direct. Did you say if it was Ethernet or USB that you do that?
It says Wi-Fi.
Oh, so yeah.
Wi-Fi or with a LAN cable, right?
Yeah, so if you could just transfer it over to the network to each other, I mean, you just, put one of your, your new PS5 on your entertainment stand with your PS4, transfer everything over, and then put your PS4 in storage. I mean, that's basically, why bother with the external hard drive unless you already have one, right? Maybe you want to have one or whatever. But, I don't typically keep an external hard drive on my PlayStation just because I'm always I only play one game at a time. So more often than not, I'm just like deleting shit and re-downloading stuff and whatever. But, I understand why people might want to have, extra storage.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on, Jake, I don't know if you remember, but about 7 years ago, you and I got real stoked on the PS4 release. You still don't have a PS5 on pre-order. The DualShock 4 controllers came out before the system was released last time they had a console release, and it looks like the same thing is happening with the DualSense controllers. They're out in the wild. They've been spotted at Walmarts and stuff. So, man, I'm getting excited. I'm getting kind of stoked about this. I don't know. This is kind of cool. Any opinion on them releasing like the peripherals prior to the console? I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they did that last time, like you said. I went out and bought a camera and I think a game, maybe Killzone Shadowfall, I think it was.
Yeah,
I went to a GameStop and bought that before the console came out. I think it's cool that they offer that so that you can go out and kind of get yourself psyched a little bit. And plus, those things are easier for Sony to kind of manufacture en masse. So they're able to kind of have them out there. Plus, if you think about it, you have your extra, if you want to play with friends or whatever, you have your extra
controller
and stuff right when your console shows up.
And you can do the old charging dance, one on the charger, one in your hand, and then one guy just swap back out.
I would certainly fucking hope that the new controllers have better battery life than the old ones, but I guess I don't know that for sure.
I wouldn't be. They're supposed to, but I wouldn't count.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I am basically, it's hard for me to be excited about the launch of the PS5 because I don't have one. And, so it's like, I don't really, the thing is that like, I haven't really been thinking about it all that much because.
You're not excited for me?
No.
Come on.
I mean, I'm excited for you, but at the same time, it's one of those things where, like, I am excited that you will be able to get one, but I'm not going to want to talk about it when you have it.
That's too bad because that's all I'm going to want to talk about. You're going to have to just come over and mess around with it, man.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, oh, here, I've got this fucking Ferrari. You can take it for a spin around the block, but you're not allowed to have it. You know what I mean? It's
well,
like,
of course, I'm not going to give it to you.
Well, it's just one of those things where, like, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if
you had the opportunity to try.
If I had the opportunity to get one, but it's like the reason why I don't have one is because Sony fucked up the launch of the pre-order.
I would argue that Walmart started it,
and I mean Walmart. I mean, but Sony should have the reins on their fucking retailers. It's not.
Can't they put like an NDA on that, like they do with you can't talk about this game here. We'll let you have the game, but you can't talk about it. You can play it and stuff, but don't talk. You're not allowed to release anything about it until. Can't they do that with the release of something and then just sue Walmart?
No, because they need Walmart to sell units. So they're basically Walmart's going to be like, "Oops, sorry, Sony," and Sony's going to be like, shake their finger and be like, "Don't you do that again?" But nothing's really going to come of it because as of right now, they still need Walmart to sell PS5s.
Yeah, they can't make an example of Walmart.
Yeah, so like that's not going to happen. It's just like. I've listened to other podcasts and stuff and how they're talking about how like it's not that big of a deal that all the shit went early and it's like, oh, I was able to pre-order fucking 3 of them or whatever.
I got 4,
and it's like, dude, I mean, okay, so
all those people you're listening to, they have no life. All they do is podcast for money. That's all they do. They're video game journalists and people who like get paid to do that. Like we don't get paid $1 for this podcast, so we actually have to work real jobs. We're in a band. We have real lives. We have bills to pay. Like we have a living. Like you were actually you weren't even in your hometown when this stuff hit the fan. Like you were in a hotel room probably somewhere because of work.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like you have expectations for like. Sony came out and for weeks and weeks and months, they're like, you're going to know exactly when the pre-orders are going to come out. We're going to tell you. Yeah. Do not worry. Do not worry. We're not going to fucking, drop them on you suddenly. And lo and behold, that's what fucking happened. And whether or not it was Sony's fault is irrelevant. It's like, Walmart freaking jumped the gun on the pre-orders and within before I even knew about it, they were all sold out. And then after that, it's like now that the freaking, the starting pistol has been fired, any single time a pre-order goes live, it immediately sells out because people are ready. And there was no
they're terrified that it's going to happen every single time now.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is because there's such a high demand for it, there are all kinds of bots and shit that are pre-ordering all this stuff. So like, for people that are just scalping them. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, dude, I'll fucking wait till next summer to buy a PS5 before I buy one from a scalper. I don't give a shit. There's enough stuff for me to play on PS4. And, the idea of being able the idea of having to pay somebody, if somebody I'll be honest with you. If somebody bought a PS5 and they got one for $500 and they were like, hey, we're not gonna kick you in the nuts with it. Give us $550 or even $600 and you can have our pre-order for PS5. That wouldn't bother me so bad because it's like, okay, you were able to get there. You stayed up until 3 a.m. You got it. And then you're just kind of, making a little bit off the top.
It's these guys $2,000.
Yeah, it's these guys that are fucking scalping them and they're putting them on eBay for $2,000 and shit like that. And it's like, okay, you guys could go fuck yourself. I don't need one that bad,
right?
And and hopefully those ones don't really sell, but they will because they always do.
Well, because there's always some kid who has a grandma who's going to give him $1 million whenever he asks for it, right?
I think what would be hilarious, and this wouldn't be the first time that this has happened, where somebody can go to eBay and literally be like, we want you to make it policy that you will not allow the scalping of our consoles on your platform.
That would be awesome. That would be really cool.
It would literally kick all these guys in the dick. Now, they would be able to sell it on other platforms and shit like that. But I don't know if you remember way back when World of Warcraft was really big.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft used to be so big that people had accounts where they would literally just spend hours and hours and hours farming gold.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would sell it on eBay to other people. Sell the
account, right?
They would sell, there was places where they would sell the account and places where they would just sell the gold or both. And like, people were making a lot of money doing this and the people buying it didn't care and all this stuff. But eventually, I don't know if Blizzard kind of got involved, but like eBay cracked down and it became illegal, like all the way across the board, illegal by eBay standards, right?
Yeah.
Like you can no longer make, a fucking level 60 character on World of Warcraft and sell it for $500 on eBay. Like you can't do that anymore. And so it would be, Now, I understand that it kind of steps on the toes of the free market and all this kind of stuff, but like at the same time, it would be interesting. It would be kind of like a pro-consumer move for Sony to like go to these outlets and be like, look, you can't allow these to be sold on your platform.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, what does Sony care? They're selling consoles no matter what. So fuck it. Who cares? We'll sell 10 to one nerd in his basement with a bot, and he'll turn around and sell them and make $20,000 on it. You know, what do we care? I mean, we're getting our paycheck. I don't know. I guess that's just a little bit of frustration for me, but it's like, I'm trying, like, I don't really, like, I'm interested in the PS5, but like, until they have something on it that I really, really want to play, like, I'm not super pumped about it launching, because it's like my big thing was like, oh, when the PS5 launches, my first game on it is going to be Cyberpunk. Well, it's like, oh, wait a minute. They're not going to have the PS5 native version of Cyberpunk ready until next year. So it's like, oh, fuck it. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, okay, Miles Morales, so I could play that on my PS4. Oh, you know, Sackboy, that might be a PS5 exclusive, right? And that's something that I might be interested in. You know, there isn't really anything that's launching that's 100% exclusive to PS5 that I'm like super stoked about. It's honestly the thing that I'm bummed about is just being able to open that new hardware and kind of, you know, get the whole like new sort of console experience with everybody else. That's like the only thing that I'm really bummed about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just like one of those things that where it is kind of exciting to be hands-on the day it comes out. Like there's this, it's like Christmas, you know, it's been a real shitty year for a lot of us. So I'm kind of bummed out for you, man, because I know you would be stoked to get one on launch day. I can just tell that, you know, I'm sure your eyes would light up and you'd be stoked to plug it in and just see what the shit's all about. Even though, like you said, like there's not really any games that are launching with it that really, really are going to trip our triggers, but it's just kind of nice to have. And the one thing I'm kind of looking forward to is playing some of those PS4 games on there, and Metro Exodus, if I'm being completely honest, ran a little clunky on the PS4, and I think that game's going to benefit being played on the PS5 just because of the speed of it. I just think it's going to be a better experience. But little things like that I'm looking forward to doing, just upgrading. You know, this isn't some middle tier console. It's not like a PS4 to a PS4 Pro. Like, you know, we've jumped. I never had a PS4 Pro, and I don't think you have either. We were both playing on old school PlayStation 4s. So I think we're going to see something, and I think the VR is going to be compatible. Speaking of the VR, though, it's going to require a camera adapter for the PS4 camera, and no one really knew how that was going to be. You know, sent out supposed to be free for everyone who has a PS4 camera. But apparently in the new PlayStation bundles in Japan, they are including the camera adapter for free. So it makes me kind of wonder if how are you going to get, like, I'm not going to be able to play VR day one probably when I get my PS5 because I'm not going to have this adapter. No one really knows how to get it. They haven't really said. It's kind of interesting. I don't know.
I'm sure that will come out eventually. I mean, maybe dude, that's really weird because it's like, what do you do? Just email them and they send you one in the mail for free, or you have to like pay for shipping, or like, are they just going to have a freaking bucket full of them at Best Buy? Like, I have no idea. It's going to be weird. Yeah.
Maybe they'll just look at like your purchases. And if you have VR games and you have an account with them, they might have your address, and maybe you'll just get one in the mail, dude.
I doubt that. They're not going to send them to people they don't have to send them to. And I bet there will be a bunch of people that buy VR games that don't necessarily still have a VR unit. So
yeah, I don't know. There's got to be an easy way to do it.
I'll be honest with you. I would just buy the new fucking camera.
What is it, like $50 probably?
It's like $50 or $60. Yeah.
I thought about doing something like that and then doing some live streaming of games, because I think the camera's going to be 4K. It's going to be a nicer camera, at least 1080 or something. And then, you know, just live streaming some games from the house and just seeing if we can get some people to watch or whatever. It might be nice for our YouTube channel, but we'll see. And Jake, my money's not where my mouth is. I opted out to not purchase the G.I. Joe game. It really looks awful. I mean, you are right about that. I knew you were right, but I was kind of hanging on a prayer. I mean, I'm not paying $40 for that. It looks like it does a lot of fan service for people who enjoy the game and stuff, just based on what I've seen. But I can't right now. I'm not paying $40 for it. I guarantee that game I'm going to see it on sale at some point, and I will get it eventually, but I'm not even going to try. But speaking of games that came out recently, October 19th, 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, Car Mayhem were released. October 20th, Amnesia Rebirth, Cross Crush, Hyper Brawl Tournament, Kukiyomi Consider It, Monster Truck Championship, Outpost Delta, Terra Bomber, and then October 22nd, Supraland, and October 23rd, Transformers Battlegrounds. So that's really all I have for news, man. I don't mean to, Earl, for the show, I don't mean to kind of cut things off short, but we're going at about an hour now.
What about this? What about your spooky games?
You want to do that this episode, or do you want to do the next episode?
I don't care. I have like fucking 20 games on my list, so we could do it now, or if you need some more time to go over your list, we can do it later.
Yeah, let's talk about what we're going to do for the next. We'll say next episode. That way, we won't. I won't have to pull all this crazy news unless something crazy happens. So, Jake and I have been talking about doing another kind of thematic show, and we're both. How many games do you have on your list?
Let me count real quick.
We'll do a little teaser for the audience for the next episode.
So I've got, I don't necessarily know that we need to have, obviously there's going to be some overlap between us.
Yeah.
But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Jeez.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
What?
15, 16 games.
How do you have 16 scary games?
Because
Do you play a lot of scary games, apparently?
I apparently have. I just went through and started thinking about it, and
That's crazy.
And Googled some lists and stuff, and obviously there's a lot of games on here. I'm trying to think if there's of the games on here that maybe you have played, and I can see
We're going to have pretty much anything that I have is going to definitely be on your list. I'm sure.
Probably. That's why, I have at the top of my list the games that I would pick that are near and dear to me that I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that there's, and like I said, I just like to have a bunch of extras. And some of these you could even, maybe 1 or 2 of these you could even argue that maybe they're not they're more thriller than scary. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think
Dead
that
Space or something, maybe, if that's on there. I don't know.
Yeah,
So, all right. So, for the listeners, we are going to do Jake and I are each making currently active. Sounds like Jake has made his list.
Yeah.
But I have about 3 or 4 games on my list right now, so I'm going to need extra time, man. But we're going to do a Halloween themed show. And I wrote a special intro song for it. It's our song, but it's a little bit of a surprise for everybody. So when you hear it come on, don't be surprised, but also don't be too scared because it is creepy sounding. But I was excited. I had a good time making that. But we're going to go over and do some scary games because it is the season for Halloween. So I would hope that Halloween falls on the 31st, which is this Saturday. No, it's not this next Saturday. It's not this Saturday coming up. It's the following Saturday. So we'll try to get this episode released. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 20th. So I would imagine before Halloween, we will have the Halloween episode out with our intro, and we'll talk about some scary games. That way, if you guys want to pick up a scary game, play it on Halloween. It's a Saturday. You guys can maybe curl up next to a fireside or next to somebody or by yourself in a dark house, or put on your VR headset and freak yourself out and play a spooky a game and tell us all about it. So that's what we're going to have next episode. And of course, any news or anything that drops. I didn't really even come up with a closure here for the show, and I meant to do that. So Jake, do you want to just spitball a closure here? Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off for the day? And then we'll do another episode here within the next week.
Yeah, no, I think that next week works out well to do the kind of spooky game list sort of episode because next week is the week of Halloween. Obviously we can think about some other things to talk about. I'm sure there'll be some news and stuff like that. And I honestly, as I was making this list, I was like, maybe I'll start playing one of these games, just to kind of get back in the mood for next week.
Yeah,
but I don't know,
man.
that, I'm trying to think if there's anything on here that I could play in the course of a week. And there are very few games on this list that I could play pretty quickly. Most of them would be, a 2+ week experience. So I don't know if I really feel like diving back in, but there's definitely some stuff on here that I think is
worthy,
is really, really legit. So we'll talk about that. What the
hell's on your
week.
list? Yeah, I'm excited. Now they are all PlayStation games?
Let me double check here. There's only one game on my list that is not available on PlayStation. Everything else is in some form or another. It might not be available on on PS4.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it was at one point in time released on PlayStation.
Yeah. And you could probably play it on whatever that service they have right now.
PS Now, yeah.
Yeah, you can probably find it on there. All right, so let's call it an episode, man. I appreciate you being here today. Appreciate the listeners for tuning into the episode 155 of PS This Is Awesome. My name is Fred Oakman. That's Jake Peters. Again, if you guys like what you hear, make sure you write into the show. Tweet at us at PS This Is Awesome. If you guys want to write the show again, it's psthisisawesome@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you'd like us to talk about anything in particular. We definitely would broach most topics, provided they are content oriented when it comes to PlayStation and kind of the ideals of the show. So we'd like to hear from you guys. I don't think we have a ton of listeners yet, but we are working on that. So if you have an opportunity, please share it with your friends. So until next time, like Genshin Impact, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, and G.I. Joe Operation Blackout, P.S. This is awesome.